popcorn started a few years ago. By researching open pollinating varieties of corn, we decided on glass gem. This spectacular variety originates from the US, is not a hybrid and not GMO. We started by purchasing a few small packets of seeds, grew these through to a successful harvest, and then planted those kernels. And this is the story of our horse-drawn popping corn. As our plans for a market garden progressed, so did the need for a significantly bigger growing space. So we sectioned off approximately 1/4 of an acre of overgrown, compacted paddock and went to work improving the soil. This paddock contains grass that we've previously found pretty challenging to plough, so we started with the discs so that we can cut some of that running grass. The next step was ploughing. The only workable plough that we had on hand at the time is a single furrow orchard plough. Not ideal for this purpose, but we managed to get the job done. At this time, our working Clydesdales, Hunter and Tommy, were also very new at working together as a pair. After allowing the ploughed ground to naturally rest and settle, we then went over with some spring tines to help flatten those furrows out.
Walk on.
In his transition to working as a pair, we noticed that our younger horse Tommy was relying on the more experienced horse Hunter for a lot of his commands. So we decided Tommy would benefit from a lot more singles work just to make sure he understood his voice commands. This little scarifier is easy for Tommy to pull and performs the same job as the spring tines. So Tommy helped us with smoothing out some of these furrows. The next task was harrowing, and we released this video for our corn planting day.
Hey. Walk on. Right over. Right over, boys. Right over.
We harrowed the ground to get everything nice and flat, ready for our single row horse-drawn seeder. The seeder has an arm that goes out to the side. As you can see it go past here, it's on the right, and it's marking the next line for the horse to walk down, which is why we needed the ground to be really nice and flat to make that line defined to even out our rows. For those of you who haven't planted with horses, ploughed with horses, or even ridden or driven a dressage test, straight lines are much harder than what they appear to be. Hunter's very good at picking up the task at hand, and he will follow the scratched line, but the straight lines are so sensitive that it only takes for something to get his attention, like the foals in the paddock next door, or something for him to look at other than that line, and it's wonky. He's an amazing horse to work with, but planting one row at a time is a long time for anyone to hold their concentration. We've used this single row seed drill a couple of times now, and this time we thought we had the straight lines pretty good. Anyway, at the time they felt straight, so you can imagine the giggle we got at our own expense when the seeds sprouted. The corn was really quick to appear, only taking about 7 days to sprout, but it wasn't long after that before everything started to come up. Potatoes and also the oat cover crop next door to the corn. As predicted, you couldn't see our wonky lines for very long as our corn started to grow. We used a single horse, Tommy, to scarify between the rows about every 2 to 3 weeks, just to keep the weeds down. This also turned out to be an excellent exercise in Tommy's education. We use a pelletised organic fertiliser called Organic Life. We applied this using an antique hand crank fertiliser spreader that we picked up from a clearing sale. A few minor repairs and it did a pretty good job. Yes, our little single row 100-year-old cedar did oversow. In hindsight, we should have thinned it out, but everything was growing so well and so lush, we kind of didn't have the heart to pull it. But you live and learn, and we'll make changes for the next crop. Everything was progressing really nicely, and we were finding that our glass gem corn was producing more than 1 cob, up to 3 cobs per stalk, and growing taller and taller by the day. It was around this time the cabbage moths found us, and not long after we noticed caterpillar damage. We always use organic practices first, so I applied a foliar spray of neem oil and water, which seemed to do the trick. We were now at the end of our Southern Hemisphere autumn. Everything is dried as much as what we believe it's going to dry on the stalks, and it was time to test our harvest. We were really happy with these results. So the following weekend we started the harvest. This was all done by hand with some assistance from Hunter at the end.
G'day, I'm Scott from Welford Heritage Farm. I'm out here on a Sunday afternoon picking some glass gem corn. We picked glass gem because it was an old sort of a heritage type of corn, or maize. It's actually a popping corn. When you pick it, peel it back. It's all kinds of weird and wonderful colours. We've got 10 rows. 10 rows, about 70 metres long. We're picking it all by hand. We've got to pick it now though before the cockies eat it all. And parrots and all sorts of things. The wildlife here seems to know exactly when it's ready to eat. So they try and beat us to it. That's okay. I'm about halfway through. I've still got a fair way to go. I picked down to about halfway mark. I've got a little bit of a cart there, sitting there on the side. But we're putting it all in. We'll put it in the cart and then I'll get one of the horses in and we'll drag it across to the processing area. Got a little, what they call a joey bag that I fill up. When it's full, I walk over to the cart, put it in. grown pretty well this year. First time we've really tried to grow it on a larger scale. Last year we planted only about 100 seeds that we bought. And these were the seeds that we retained from last year, and we planted 10 70-metre rows. It's growing pretty well. I probably could have thinned it out a bit, fed it a bit better. We only feed with organic fertiliser and horse manure that we've composted down. You can see we get through half a row pretty quick. I'm picking everything. What doesn't make the grade, I'll crush it up in our little grifter and use it for animal feed. I like to open them up occasionally, just have a look at the different colours. Got a bit of damage on it. That's pretty good. We'll pick the best of it out, replant it again next year. We'll sell some for popcorn. We'll grind some up for the animals, the chickens and the cows and the pigs and whatever else we are feeding at the time. Each stalk's got about 2 or 3 cobs on it. It's pretty good, I think. It's self-pollinating corn, so we can regrow it. We catch the seeds. Cut through the other rows. Put the bag in. Gonna unhook the little clips off the jelly bag. Step up on the back step of the cart. Put it in.
Once Scotty filled this cart, it was way too heavy for us to push, so we dragged in the big guns to help us out. Then it was corn shucking time. I don't know exactly how many husks I peeled off cobs that week, but it felt like thousands. The interesting thing about this job is that each cob of glass gem is completely unique. The grading process allocated our cobs into firsts, seconds and thirds. The firsts were hung up for further drying. Seconds were put aside because they're still good but a little undersized. And thirds are for later crushing. It was a little overwhelming to see how much there was to do. We left the husks still attached wherever possible so that we could use that to help string them up for further drying. I did a trial with how we wanted to dry them. I platted a few using the same method we do for garlic, but given our quantities, it was just way too time consuming for how many we had to do. So I found that using string around the peeled husk was much more efficient and still gave us the result we were looking for. It was quite disappointing on cobs such as this one to see such a pretty, well-formed, good-sized cob that was damaged at the end by the caterpillars. If we hadn't applied the neem oil when we did, we would have lost this crop. This is our entire crop with the first stage of processing done. Everything has been peeled. Our firsts have been strung up for natural drying. Popcorn won't pop until its moisture content decreases to approximately 11 to 14%. And we'll use a grain moisture meter to keep track of our natural drying process. Some of our seconds are way too cute to crush. These will be sold as ornamental corn, and our thirds are going into the crib for further drying and later crushing. And what about all those corn stalks? In our aim for farm diversity and our animals all contributing to our growing process, our sheep are currently having first pick of what's left, working section at a time and fertilising as they go. What the sheep don't want will be mulched and worked back into the soil for the next crop.